Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. We have Dino back with us from RBC. Hi Dino.
Good morning.
We're really happy to have him back. We're excited for his webinar today. It's called Leadership in Today's Ever-Changing Workplace.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, welcome everyone. It's great to be here with you again. Yeah, I've been in the banking industry for about 34 years. I was fortunate. I was born, raised, and educated here in Canada, but I'm of an immigrant background. My parents came to Canada. Um, the banking industry is growing, it's expanding, and has a wealth of opportunities. And I hope through the seminar and some feedback that I'm able to give you some insights in some of the things that we're looking for in the industry. It's a very stable industry, and as I mentioned, there's a huge amount of opportunities. And my goal through these seminars is to help you navigate through some of those skill sets. And I look forward to interacting with you.
Thank you, Dino. So, Dino, if you can see our screen, we're on our slide and take it away.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. What I thought we'd talk a little bit about today is leadership. Leadership is not about titles. It's not about positions or flow charts. It's about one life influencing another. That's very, very important. Now, you may say to yourself, well, okay, leadership, that's great, but how's that going to help me get a job, keep a job, or what value is that going to bring? Especially in the financial service industry, as a matter of fact, the leadership skill set is what will differentiate you from the other candidate. It's something that we're always striving in a candidate. So I felt it was very important to understand some of the concepts, the ideas behind the leadership, the styles, what drives it, the impact would be a tool that you would add to your tool belt. So as you're talking to a potential employer, this is something that you can use to highlight that differential between you and the other candidate. It's not just about that title. It's not just about that state of mind. It's the inspiration that you have and the attitude that you bring to inspire people, to take a group of people to new heights, reach their potentials. And as we mentioned, the employment opportunities with this skill set are enriched tenfold. During one of my responsibilities is to hire new leaders, and it's those skill sets in leadership that we're looking for. It is a sought after future attribute that organizations are looking for. So I hope you'll get some good tips and material from it. We can go to the next one, please. So when we talk about leadership, what are some of the characteristics that encompass what makes up a good leader? These are the things that come out, that stand out in leaders, that differentiate themselves, that inspires people to follow them and to help accomplish their goals. Honesty and integrity. They remain committed to their values and their core benefits. We're always acting ethically and for the good of the entire group. This is very, very important. A good leader is not only proud of the results they get from their team, but just as important, how they actually get the results. The honesty, integrity in their comportment, in their leadership skill set is just as important as what the team accomplishes. And especially if you take a look at it in the financial service, well, any industry really, but in the financial service industry where we are entrusted with people's assets, money, and so on, that honesty and integrity has to come through from that leader, which transfers down to the team, to the ultimate client. Confidence. Have confidence in yourself and the decisions you make, the actions and interactions. One of the very important characteristics of a good leader is that confidence level. Keep in mind that your team is looking to you for guidance, for direction. That confidence has to be there because that's what they are looking, or the expectation is from that leader. Now, there's a fine line between confidence and swagger or cockiness, which, that, well, I'm overconfident, I know exactly this and that, and I portray that type of attitude. No, no, no. Confidence is an understanding of what the capabilities are, and your understanding of what you know and what you don't know, and more importantly, how to find what you need. And having that confidence, that type of characteristic translates down to your team, because what ends up happening is your teams will replicate what they see, and that confidence level comes down from the team onto the ultimate client. In your case, in regards to finding employment, have that confidence level in that skill set. Again, it's not a swagger, but it's a portrayal of an image that instills that confidence in the candidate. Inspire others. As a leader, this is probably one of the most difficult things to do, and actually it's probably one of the most important characteristics. You've got to identify, first of all, we have to identify, as a leader, to develop the skill set, identifying what things will inspire your team. Now, that inspiration can apply to the whole team or individually. And then what makes them want to do great things? You take that, once you've got that knowledge, you then take that to inspire them. Always conduct yourself in such a way that they're going to follow your instructions and gain inspiration from the way you're coming across, the way it's being portrayed, and as the photograph says there, lending a hand. You can see one of the individuals lending a hand to the other, inspires them to do great things, or inspires them to go above and beyond what they think they can do. Very, very important. Next one, please. Passion and commitment. Passion about the goal that's to be accomplished. Why am I doing this? The passion and the care that I want to help this team achieve that goal. Really feel it in your heart that this is important to you, it's important to the team, and it's important to convey that passion. When we convey that passion, it shows that we have skin in the game. It means something to me. It means something to my team. Commitment. I'm committed to help you, to help our team members get to that ultimate goal. I will do what I can using the passion that I have. I am committed to help you achieve that specific end result. And that could be, and it's not always commitment to a financial goal or passion for a financial goal, which is then executed. It can be passion about learning. As a leader, you have passion about growing your people. I want to help you grow. I want to help you gain knowledge, information, skill set, and I'm committed to doing that. And commitment has to be consistent. We don't want to just do it on an ad hoc type basis. You want to continually keep committed to that goal, whatever that goal would be. Good communicator. The ability to articulate your vision or your mission or your purpose. Now, when we think of communication, most often we think about our voice. what you hear. Well, that's true. It's a big part of the way we communicate. That's the verbal communication. With today's technology, with today's society and so on, nonverbal communication is just as important. As a matter of fact, what actually happens at times, the nonverbal cues that we send out are actually as strong, if not stronger, than what we are actually verbally communicating. Our posture, our tone, our facial expression, all in all send out a specific message above and beyond of what the words that are coming out of your mouth. We were just talking, Sonia and I, before the presentation about, for me, this is a little bit new in communication because I'm used to having students in a class or a team in front of me. Well, I can't see you. Now you can see me at a certain point in time, so I've got to be cognizant of that fact. You're not able to see the expressions on my face. You're not able to see my mannerisms, nor can I see the expressions on your face or your engagement. So it's very, very important to hone those skills. One other thing with a good communicator is check for understanding. Are we getting our message across, whether verbally, non-verbally, and so on? Is it getting across? And, you know, it's great to think that we are getting it across, but most times what happens with leaders that are missing this type of a skill set, they're not checking for understanding. What a good leader will do is he or she will check and say, well, okay, is that message getting across? Is it resonating? Am I doing that on a consistent basis? And then a good communicator, based on that feedback that they're getting, they may have to adjust. They may have to adjust their tone. They may have to adjust the language that they use, their body motions, and so on. And communicating at a level that is fully understandable to the group in which you are leading, and that skill set to adapt to whatever level that is. A friend of mine who is a chartered accountant, he walks into a large company and the CEO says, "You're a chartered accountant." Yes. Well, as a chartered accountant, that's fantastic. Do you have the skill to make a presentation to our board of directors and CFOs and so on? Yes, I do. And the same token, again, this is no disrespect, he says, then I also need you to go down to the shop floor and talk to our 50 production employees there. Different skill set. He's able to adapt and change. So the way we communicate is very, very important, and that adaptability to our audience. We go on. Decision-making capabilities. Making the right decision. Are you always going to do it? No, you're not. However, the skill set that we're looking in a leadership type of role there is the capability of making the decision after careful consideration, after gathering as much information as possible, after exploring all the avenues. We see this all the time. The decision isn't made, or it's put off, or it's stalled. No. A good leader, once they've done their due diligence, obtained opinion, gathered as much facts as possible, the decision has to be made. It's easy to put it off, or easy to say, well, I need more information, or I'm not quite sure about that. All reasonable, but once those questions are asked to the best of the ability, that decision has to be made. The other important thing is stand by your decision, assuming that we've covered all the bases, we've gotten as much information as possible, it is meeting with the objectives of the team, the organization, and so on. Stand by the decision. The last thing that a good leader wants to be is wishy-washy. Now, Don't get me wrong, it's important always to hear opinions, but that's in the decision-making process. Once that's all been gathered, that decision has to be made and followed through, and stand by it. Don't hesitate. Very, very important, because again, that sends out a message to our team. I am committed. I'm committed to help. We're committed to doing this together. We've committed to go forward. Here's the decision. Let's execute on it. Accountability. Holding your team accountable, but more importantly, holding yourself accountable. Um, Keep your commitment. If I have promised that I'm going to do something in order to help the team achieve a goal, I am accountable to the team, and I'm also accountable to myself. I have to, I'm not looking to blame others if things go wrong. I'm not pushing it off on something that possibly was within or without my control. I am accountable. If something transpires that I did not have direct control about, there's nothing wrong to admit that, but maintain your team and yourself accountable. A good leader takes more than his share of the blame and a little less than his share of the credit. Delegation and empowerment. Empower, authorize your team to complete tasks. After you have a very good knowledge of the skill set that they have or that they still need to develop, empower them to do their job. Empower them to make decisions which fall within their skill set. Delegate. It is impossible to do everything yourself. Delegation, one, it helps you manage better. Two, what it also does, and this goes back to one of the other attributes, it instills confidence. It instills confidence in your team members that, wow, he or she actually has that confidence in me to go ahead and do this task. Empower, allowing them to do it. Now, we're providing them guidance along the way. The old adage is, well, you know what, it's better if I do it all myself. Well, that's not necessarily true. As a good leader, you've identified the skill sets of your team. Let them do it. That is a trait that is very, very much valued in a leader. Now, you may have to do some coaching as you identify some gaps in that skill set, but once those are addressed, delegate. Let them do it. Follow up, hold them accountable, but give them that sense of responsibility. Creativity and innovation. The financial service industry, well, all industries in Canada and North America are constantly changing. The attribute for a leader is to have that creativity. They must have the ability, that skill set to look forward, finding new ways of doing things. I know it's an old cliche, but thinking outside the box. As a banker, I've never really looked at myself as a banker. I've always looked at myself as a business person. I just happen to be in the banking industry. What creatively can I do to endear customers, to innovatively coach our team, look at things above and beyond that are the norm? Now, obviously, we want to use some practical common sense, but we constantly, as a leader, have to be creative. As society changes, as our customer bases change, as our teams change, we constantly have to be creative as a leader in order to address any challenges, overcome any hurdles, and innovation. Do things. Necessity is the mother of invention. So if I need something, it doesn't exist, let me innovate it. And that constant framework is very, very important. And finally, one of the final characteristics of good leadership Empathy. We are dealing with people. These are not robots. These are human beings with feelings, with compassion and empathy. Understand. A good leader understands the team dynamics, the people attributes of his team. Make that personal connection. Make them feel valued as human beings. Make them feel valued as the skill set that they bring to it. It's important as a person. They're not an asset of the company. They are a human being performing a specific duty. We've got to empathize with them. And now empathy is also very, very important. Sometimes as leaders, what tends to happen is we tend to become detached from what our team is actually going through because we tend to see the big picture. Empathizing is understanding, being in there with them, understanding the challenges that they're facing every day in their work environment, their social dynamics. Now, we don't have to be a friend. However, having that understanding of the empathetic, acknowledge the challenges and so on, and that we're there to help in a professional business manner goes a long, long way. Okay. Let's talk about leadership styles. If you look on the left-hand side of the graph there, leaders, styles, and you've got arrows to a bunch of bubbles. Which type? What do I see? Why others follow? How do I change? The styles and the methods that are used are critical elements in accomplishing goals, the effectiveness of the techniques. And if you look at the chart on the right-hand side, it's like a funnel. Your team, your role, your task impacts your leadership style. So the concepts of your team, your actual role, what actually has to happen, that will have a huge impact on the leadership style that you have. So I want to give you a little bit of background on some of the more common styles. Now remember, style is, although there are some modeled styles, your particular style is going to be different than your colleagues. And it's not to say that one attribute from one style is not going to apply to another. It's the understanding of the elements that are on there, going back to the left, that determines the leader's style. So what are some of the models of techniques and methods of styles? If we go to the next slide. Next slide. Transactional. A transactional type of, no, sorry, go back. You go back to the other one, previous. Okay, great. So transactional type of leadership style or method. They inspire by expecting the best from themselves and others. They set high expectations. Let's get the transaction done. This is what the expectation is. My expectation of you is this, and my expectation of myself is also that. Very, very transactional, very, very mechanical. Very, as you can see, the dollar signs are there, very, very focused. Affiliate or affiliate, it creates an emotional bond or harmony. Charismatic, you're meeting the team needs. There's another interesting concept that goes with this particular style, is what's called servant leadership, where we become part and parcel, not that we are subservient to our team, but that we are there to serve a purpose for them, whether that being increasing or achieving their goal, growing, and so on. Next one, democracy. Build consensus through participation. Everyone has an opportunity to provide input. Now, the only thing to be careful is with this particular method. When you think of democratic, the majority rules. Well, not always. Depending on the dynamics of the team, you want to give everyone the opportunity to have a vote, to have a say, to contribute, and so on. But you also want to be cognizant, and again, you don't want to just totally delegate and totally give up your leadership component because the majority have ruled. Okay, that becomes a part and parcel of decision-making progress. But the underlying theme is everyone has the opportunity to provide input. Pace setting, setting the direction and the tone for the events. In other words, this type of leadership sets the tone of what is the expectation or what the ultimate goal is. Now, the important thing with setting the tone is the actual executing, making sure that that message is getting across, and I'm going to take the lead for you. Just as the diagram shows, you see the captain with the flag at the very beginning. So I'm setting the pace. Coaching, a coaching type of leadership method. This actually works very, very well if you're in charge of a fairly inexperienced team, helping that developmental, helping that skill set, helping and coaching them forward and growing. At the same time, not forgetting ultimately what the goal is. And coaching encompasses that communication piece that we talked about, that decision-making process that we talked about, and checking for understanding. Very, very important. And as I mentioned, this type of style is usually when you're with a more inexperienced type team, although I've used this type of style when I have managed very senior, mature teams. It goes back to the innovation and so on. If we have to innovate, I'm going to have to coach, lead, pace, and so on to help them reach that ultimate goal. And what you're doing here is you're actually developing people for the future, which as an organization, what I'm looking for in a leader is someone who's going to be developing future leaders, because ultimately that's what's going to keep us vibrant and so on. Next one, please. Coercive, demand, immediate compliance. I'm going to get you to do something, and I'm going to do it possibly by manipulation. Be careful. It is a technique that does work. It can backfire. You want to, as a leader, you want to get buy-in. You do not want to coerce someone into doing something. It is a quick hit. It works, but in the long run, it tends to backfire. But there may be instances where you are going to come across that type of leader. So you want to be cognizant of that. And that goes hand in hand, actually, with the next one, authoritative. Lead through authority. I'm the manager. I'm the leader. You're going to do what I tell you. And if you look at the picture there, the gentleman has got a loud blowhorn, intimidation. Again, in the short term, it may work. It is not a quality or a style or a model of leadership that's going to have long-term success. Now, having said that, as a leader, you do at times have to be firm, direct, and so on, but be very, very cognizant that we're not crossing that line into coercive or authoritative. Bureaucratic. A leader that is continuously bureaucratic. They focus on every single little nook and cranny and so on. And as the diagram shows, it's constantly red tape. Paralysis by analysis. I'm going to analyze everything before I make a decision, and then it becomes such bureaucratic, or I become so paralyzed in the analysis, I don't ever make the decision. Again, you want to be cognizant of that and don't want to fall into that trap. being bureaucratic, because actually what ends up happening is then that other attribute that we talked about, innovation and so on, goes out the window. Now, not to say that we don't want to follow. Obviously, there are rules and regulations that we do have to follow, but be very, very, very careful that does not become the end-all and be-all of your management or your leadership style. Okay, let's talk about, I've narrowed it down to 5 essential leadership skills. These are very, very specific skills that a good leader possesses: communication, motivation, positivity, creativity, feedback. These are tools that you need. They're all very, very important in helping you succeed as a leader. Incorporate these skills or this skill set in your tool belt, and future employers, this is what they are looking for. So you want to be able to take every opportunity to bring forward this skill set that you have. Give specific examples of where you've used these skills or where you've brought them to life. So communication, motivation, positivity, creativity, and feedback. Let's look a little bit closer at each one of them. Communication. Well, we've already talked about communication. Very clear, succinct, articulate, specific. Communicate to everyone, the entire team. We already talked a little bit about verbal and nonverbal, your tone, your pitch of voice, your body language. Listening. Communication is a two-way process. One is the message that's coming across, but the other part of it is listening. Is the message getting across? Are they actually hearing what you're saying? Again, checking for understanding. Follow through on what you said you were going to do. If I have communicated something, follow through. I am going to follow through on what I've communicated. Keep promises, work ethic, and so on. Creativity. Think differently. We talked about this already. Open to new ideas, new concepts. Always be learning. As leaders, it's not the point of sometimes we become complacent. Well, I'm the leader of the team now. I don't need to learn anything more. I just have to pass on what I do know to my team. No. Creative thinking expands our mind in that we're always constantly learning. Flexible. Critical thinking of our own thought process. Imaginative. Embrace different cultures and perspectives. Very, very important to think differently, to be open to new ideas. Canada, we're very lucky. We're a multicultural country. The richness that comes from the many cultures here in Canada, and to embrace that. Accept and adapt. There are going to be times where you're going to have to adapt. Look at creative ways of adapting new ideas, making the square peg fit in the round hole. Always learning those new skills, open to suggestion, recognizing individuals that are thinking that way, because that motivates even more creativity, which motivates more motivation, which is the next one. The ability to inspire that team to greater efforts that we talk about. Very interesting. If you look, a lot of surveys done on what motivate people, and the first thing that comes to mind is money. Well, what actually happens, if you read some of the social sciences, is that yes, money is a huge motivator, but it's a short-lived motivator. What tends to happen is you motivate someone by giving them more money. It lasts for a period of time, anywhere from a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. And then what happens is, unless something else is there to motivate them, you have to give them even more money. So the motivation factor, a good leader knows above and beyond the financial aspect what motivates them. Is it recognition? Is it reward? And so on. Which has proven over the long run is going to be much more beneficial. Delegation that we talked about and empowering is a huge motivator. Set a big picture, set the expectation, delegate, follow up, empower, and that motivation factor goes up astronomically with a continuous basis. And it's got to be consistent. Well, it's not you're the employee of the month this month, and next month it's this or that, and so on. No, it has to be consistent factor going forward. Feedback, the ability to provide useful, constructive feedback, letting our teams know how they're doing, how they can do it differently, what could add value to them, constructive. It has to be, the other thing also with feedback, it has to be concise. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult giving, it's easy giving back good feedback. This was done great and so on and so forth. The challenge for a good leader and the skill sets they've got to develop is providing that feedback when it isn't all that great. So that's where that skill set has to be refined to provide constructive feedback. Yes, something could have been done differently, but at the same token, you want to give the feedback as a learning. Well, okay, this possibly could have been done differently, and this is how it may have been able to be done differently. You want to be very concise, you want to be constructive, not personal, and the feedback is you want to give it frequently, both good feedback and feedback that may need for the team member to improve or opportunity. Positivity, good attitude, the ability not to take yourself too serious. Positive environment. As a team leader, you cannot instill in someone positivity. What you can instill or what you can work on is creating an environment that your team operates that fosters a positive attitude. I can't make you think positively, or I can't influence you to think positively, but what I can do as a leader is I can create the environment that encourages it. So I'm constantly creating that environment that makes people feel good about themselves. Friendliness, reinforced it. It builds trust, integrity, credibility. And you as a leader create the environment where that positivity grows. Next one, please. Sorry, we should have brought that one up. Next one. Next slide, please. Okay, how do I take these now and actually make an impact? Now, making an impact means actually making a difference. You're going to drive to make that impact. High impact leaders say no to the status quo. Leadership must be impactful. In today's environment, organizations are looking for leaders that are going to make a huge difference over short periods of time. So you want to take these kinds of things and employ them so that you have that impact, that result. It also gives you personal reward because you're actually seeing the fruit of your labors. It is impacting on your organization. It's impacting on your team. It's impacting change. And without change, there can be no change. So you want to set ambitious goals. You want to set clear outcomes. Strong grasp of your business. And how can you make an impact on a business or a team if you don't know your business? You have to know that business inside and out and constantly learn about that business and learn about your teams because that team is going to be changing. So in order for you to impact it, you've got to know your business and you've got to know your team. Another way you're going to make impact is you're partnering with the right people. Who am I bringing into the mix that's going to help me and my team achieve our goals? Am I bringing in the right partners? Who are the right partners that I'm going to need? That's that skill set that you will have to employ that's going to relate to the impact. Make the decision, again, stick by it, gather all the facts, but actually make the decision. Focus your resources. Another good way of making impact, focus your resources on what matters the most. Where are we going to get the most value from our resources as the best outcome. That drives impact. That makes a difference. Simplify things. You want to have an impact on a decision, on a goal, on a team? Make it simple. Make it to the point where it's easy to understand, easy to execute, easy to measure, easy to follow up, and direct impact on the result. You also know to have an impact, you know what must be perfect versus what must get done. There's a big difference. In order for me to impact, I know what has to be done. I know what has to be perfect. I also know what doesn't have to be. So I'm impacting based on what needs to be done. If we want to just go to the next slide. Leadership that creates a culture of continuous learning. Lead the learning process. Use technology to learn, the methodology to learn. And there are several things that you want to keep in mind here. Plan. Define what you want to do, what you want to improve, what you want to change, what you want to continue to do, what areas need attention. And as a leader, identifying that, planning, putting it together. Do. Implement the ideas. Everyone has to contribute. Set benchmarks. Measure the results. A good leader does. Commitment does. Execution. Study. Analyze the results. How did you achieve the results? Why did we achieve the results? Why didn't we achieve the results? Understand. A good leader has that understanding that, wait a minute, let me sit back, let me see what went right, what went wrong, what could we do differently? And finally, adjust. A leader then, once they've done that, has that capability or that learning, continuous learning culture of adjusting. Goes back to what we said before. As a leader is continually learning, he takes or she takes those learnings and adjusts. Keep striving for what's important. This is not a one-time type of exercise. It's a continuous learning process and impacting. Plan, do, study, adjust, and execute. These are the types of things that you want to refine as a continuous learning as a leader. As we talked about in the beginning, leadership skill set is the future. Companies and organizations are looking above and beyond the prerequisite type of skill sets as these types of skill sets that will differentiate you and I from the next candidate. It adds value to your employability. It makes you different. And these types of skill sets, as we build them and develop them, so on, we can apply them to life in general, and so on. It's not limited to a certain aspect of it. The continual learning process execution is what differentiates and makes a good leader and makes the marketability of a candidate stand head and shoulders above others. So I just want to thank you very much. I hope I've been able to provide some insights and some stimulated thinking, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dino, again. So this gives us a few minutes for our Q&A. So everyone, please start typing in your questions into the questions tab, and please keep them brief so that Dino can answer them as well. All right, so Munawar has a question here, Dino.
Sure.
He wants to know, where does effective follow-up fall under?
Effective follow-up would fall under accountability, because you want to hold people accountable, and one way to determine that accountability is effectively following up with them. It also would fall under, I would say, adjusting. Because what happens is if you're following up effectively and so on, there may have to be adjustments that may have to be made, Also providing feedback, because it is through effective follow-up that allows you the opportunity to provide feedback as well. And it's very, very important to following up, because it falls under consistency also, you could put it, because what it does is it tells our team, look, he or she is going to be following up to make sure that we're still on track. And if you do it consistently, it empowers them and it makes them feel like, you know what, he's committed to doing this, so I'm committed to doing it as well.
Thank you. Next question is, does leadership qualities have to be in every person, even though working at entry-level positions?
Short answer, yes. When I'm coaching our client advisors, which would be the equivalent to our entry-level position in the bank, I am looking for those leadership qualities in that individual, although it's only entry level, because what that helps you do, it helps that client advisor or that entry level position person stand out for that next position. And it won't be as detailed or as methodical as a more senior level position. However, do not discount it at the entry level. When a good manager is hiring, they are hiring for the next position. So as an example, when I am hiring for a client advisor, an entry level position, I am hiring for that next position. So and leadership is very, very important for that next position. So that client advisor, I'm looking for the qualities that he or she may possess as a banking advisor, or as a financial planner, or as a financial advisor. So it's very, very important. And what it also does, it plants the seed in the interviewer's mind that there is opportunity here for growth and development. Because what could end up happening, you could be a team leader amongst entry-level type of position individuals as well, at a more junior level. So absolutely, that mindset is hugely important.
Thank you. We got a couple more questions. All right, so Ahmed would like to know, how can a leader create a positive working environment?
Okay, anyways, first of all, your own framework, coming in or interacting with your team always on a positive note, empathy, creating the old cliches, creating an open door policy. In other words, approachability. Make yourself approachable. Don't be in your office. I spend very, very little time actually in my office. I'm amongst our customer base, amongst my staff. Get in there with them. Ask for feedback. Do not be afraid to ask for feedback from them. Encourage questions. Encourage discussions. Encourage opinion. Positive feedback. Always looking for an opportunity to provide positive feedback that empowers the individual. Be careful that we're not coming across authoritative, although at times we may have to, but you always, and that doesn't say that you also want to be wishy-washy either, but it's an environment of openness. We talk about communication, tone, and so on, but if you ever watch someone in a room, they have their arms crossed across their chest, which is a closed type of posture. As a manager, as a leader amongst your team and the group, openness, body language is very, very important. Leaning forward to listen, to reconfirm that you're understanding, to empathize. Dismissive, not being dismissive. Although you may have heard the same question 100 different times from 100 different members of your staff, do not dismiss it, because for that employee or that team member, it's important to them. So those are the kinds of things that help create that environment.
Thank you. All right, so a lot of people are asking about if the presentation is available. Yes, everyone will get a recording a few hours after the webinar ends. Sorry, one second. Okay, so Masood wants to know what is the best role of a leader when there's a conflict in a team?
Okay. Don't take sides, first of all.
Okay.
Don't take sides. The best thing that a leader can do when there is a conflict, the first thing is make sure we approach it with an open mind. Everyone's going to come in with their agenda and so on. A leader must go in with an open mind. Respect and listen to both sides. Check for understanding. That's you understanding where they're coming from. Once you've done that, one of the techniques that I use is try to find some common ground. As you listen to both sides or the individuals that are involved, you're going to find some common ground between the two of them or three of them or the two groups, whatever it is. Now, that can only be achieved through listening and asking questions, empathizing, understanding what each group is saying. Once that's done, build on the common ground. And a lot of times that common ground is both sides want to accomplish the same goal, the corporate goal, the team goal, and so on. So build on that and see if we can bring the two sides together. Ultimately, you're going to have to make a decision. Be confident in the decision that you make, but also be confident that you've tried to explore that commonality and help them both towards that commonality. And what you may want to do, another technique that also works is you and I are speaking. Well, you're hearing one thing, but I don't actually mean it that way. But me as a leader may hear it a little bit different. So maybe I can help you understand, or maybe I can give you another perspective on what that person is saying. And then that barrier comes down. Oh, I never thought of it that way because I'm only listening to Dino, whereas the manager is hearing Dino, but he may be hearing something else, and he may be able to communicate it in a way that Sonia understands it a little bit differently than what was actually her perception of things. Make the final decision and explain why. Explain why, and do not, or as best as possible, do not take sides nor appearing to take sides, but try to build on that commonality.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so we have maybe a few more minutes. I just want to quickly take some questions here. How are the leadership qualities actually get assessed at interview stage? So what kind of questions would a candidate be asked to see what kind of leadership qualities they have?
Okay. They're usually very specific example type questions. So as an example, talk about creativity. Tell me about when we had to solve a particular problem if there wasn't a policy per se in effect. How did you come up with a solution? So that deals with creativity. Tell me about the one that we just talked about. Tell me about how you resolve the conflict between two team members. That talks about the commonality and so on. The passion or commitment. Dino, tell me what you know about the Royal Bank and what our strategy and our mission statement is. That talks about my passion for my company, my passion for my commitment. What else? Tell me about when you had to make a decision which was not very popular, but you thought or knew it was the right decision. That talks again about making the decision based on all the information that was obtained and so on. So very, very specific types of questions. Those are what are called situational questions. When something has happened or will happen, and how exactly you're going to react to it.
Thank you. All right, so let's do one last question. All right, so you actually happen to address a lot of issues that people were having in their workplace. Um, hold on, let me just do. Okay, so which is the most effective leadership, I guess, quality, which is the most relevant in today's workplace?
In style, which is the most effective leadership
Yeah,
style?
yeah.
There is not one. As I said in the beginning, there is not one. It's not
Mhm.
transactional, affiliate, democratic, pace setting, coaching, coercive, authoritarian. There is not one. It's a combination. The most effective type of leadership, if I had to recap it, is one that takes all those characteristics and applies them as they are needed. There are going to be times where you may have to be authoritative, but only when it warrants it. There are going to be times when you will have to affiliate. We've got to be able to take all of them and apply them and melt them and employ them depending on the situation. So to say one, I really can't say. The qualities of the leadership is understanding, empathy, confident, and committed. Those would be what I would recap as.
Thank you, Dino.
But
Thank you again. Sorry, go ahead.
uh, being aware of the different styles helps us identify when they're being used, whether we by chance use them or someone is using them in our team. But it also helps us understand what the components are and how to deal with them and learn from it. So to say one style, you can't really say, but as an amalgamation and an understanding, it helps you as a leader know, wait a minute, now I'm becoming too authoritarian, or I'm being too transactional. No, let me pull back a bit. Maybe I need to employ the empathy a little bit more. So it's an awareness of the style.
I absolutely agree. Thank you very much. And again, thank you, Dino, for coming back for yet another very inspirational webinar. I'm hearing some great things. I'll send over what people have to say to you later. And everyone, thank you again for joining us. I hope that you were able to get all your questions answered. And again, if you still have any questions, you can email us at onlineservices@accessemployment.ca. And we do have our past RBC webinars posted on our website. So you can go to accessemployment.ca, click on e-access, and there's a bunch of different tiles for you to check out if you want to see how to build a better resume, how to stand out in your next interview. Again, thank you all for your participation. There is a survey at the end of the webinar. Please do fill it out as it really helps us to plan webinars in the future. And stay in touch with us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. So if you're looking to find out what's coming up next, follow us on our social media because everything's always posted there. Dino, thank you again so much. And if there's anything you'd like to say before we sign off.
I just want to thank you for this opportunity. ACCES, you guys are doing an absolutely phenomenal job. Thank you very much. There's excellent opportunity in our industry. We're always looking for very, very good people. Any new Canadians as well. Canada is a multicultural country. We have the richness here, and I wish you all the best of success. And again, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's greatly appreciated.